Hey there everybody, welcome to C++ beginner tutorial. It's your host nirex, and today we're going to talk about this entire course and this video. So this is a pre-course video that talks about the integrity of the course and what's in it and all that good stuff. So the first question that comes to mind is why we should go with C++. Everybody asks that question. Everybody wonders why should we go for C++ in this day and age. Well, the reason to that is because C++ has a high amount of scalability. It's very scalable, I'm sorry. It has a high amount of speed and it has a bright future. Okay, so what do I mean by scalability? What I mean is you can work with C++ in almost any platform, be it Windows, let me just add this one, Linux, Mac, iOS, or Android. The only thing you cannot write with C++ is web development. You cannot do web dev with C++. You cannot write websites with C++. But you can write web server applications with this language. The reason why you can't write website programs or website codes with C++ is because the browser cannot comprehend C++. It can only compile HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So it's not a weakness of C++, it's rather a weakness of the browser, and that's the standard of browser, to not be able to compile anything but those three languages. So C++ is highly scalable, again, I'm sorry. You can use it on anything you want, Windows, Linux, Mac, iOS, Android, whatever. It has an extreme amount of speed, and that's definitely one of the big perks of C++ that makes it better than almost any other language. Now, some may wonder why should we go with C++ instead of C. The reason to that is C++ is less painful than C. You will see the differences between C++ and C when we get here. And you can see how painful it is to write a simple class in C, because it's impossible for the C compiler to comprehend a class as it does in C++. Okay, so why speed? Because C++ is kind of close to a low-level language. It's not entirely a low-level language, but it's close to it. It's somewhere in the middle. It's in the between. And speed is what C++ is all about. C++ is organized, it's made in a way so that the only thing that it cares about is optimization and speed. That's why a lot of AAA games are made entirely in C++. A lot of programs are made in C++, like Notepad++, like Visual Studio, or a big part of Windows itself, Unreal Engine or CryEngine or any other engine you can think of. Mainly game engines or big programs or projects are made with C++ because of the speed it offers. So definitely speed is a big factor in this question of why should we use this language. And last but not least, the future of C++. It does have a bright future. It's not going to die. I'm pretty sure about it, because the talk has been around for a while that C++ is dead or it's going to die, but we all know that it's not going to be dead anytime soon. Even C is not going to be dead. Again, the reason to that is because of the speed and the scalability it offers. No matter what language comes, even if it offers the same amount of scalability or more, like Python, it cannot offer the same amount of speed. And the reason to that is C++. It is written in C++. That language is made in C++. So in this particular case, the son can never be faster than the parent. It can never be better than the parent. And that is why we should use C++. That is why we always use C++ in big projects. Every big company, IBM, Windows, Microsoft, Apple, whatever. Big companies like Tesla or whatever, they always are looking for developers who can code in C++ on a professional level. That's why this language is absolutely amazing, and there's no reason not to go for it. Okay, so these are reasons why we should learn C++ in opposed to other languages, except if you want to go for web dev, you cannot write any websites or anything like that with C++. But yes, if you're looking for having a great amount of knowledge about computers and how things work down there in the CPU or close to CPU or in the RAM and all that good stuff, this language is your language. Okay, so now about the requirements of this course. It doesn't really need that much. I don't really need that much from you to begin with. There's absolutely no knowledge requirement. You don't need to know anything, absolutely nothing. Void mind, clear mind, just, nothing should be there. If it is, then good for you, but I don't really need anything, need you to know anything. But there are some software requirements. What I need is, if you're on Windows Visual Studio, mainly 2017, if you can get your hands on it, there's a community edition. It's absolutely free, or the Express edition. They're free. You can easily download them and use them. They all support C++, and they're good. So this is all I need. I will not have a tutorial on this. Maybe something in the future, but not just yet. So yeah, 2017 or 2019, which just hasn't been released yet. So either this one or this one. Get your hands on it, download it, and start using it. There are tons of videos out there on the YouTube, on the internet, on YouTube, that teaches you how to do this thing, how to download it, and install it. So it shouldn't really be a problem. Just don't use dev C++ because it's a pain. It's kind of a, it's just a pain. Don't really go for this one. What you want is Visual Studio. If you're on Mac, if you're learning this on Mac, if you're watching this video on Mac, definitely use Xcode because that's the ideal IDE for development. So yeah, these are your choices. And definitely do not use dev C++. Okay, so that's that. If you're on Linux, you can just use any code editor, any code editor, and then compile your code with any compiler. So it shouldn't really be a problem until we get to certain points in this tutorial, like here, WinAPI introduction. Of course, this is not going to work on Linux or Mac OS. This is just for Windows. Windows API is just for Windows. Anyhow, this has been the requirement and the reason why we should go with C++. Now let's talk a little bit about this course itself, what it contains, and why you should watch this one. So there are a couple of modules to this one: the beginner module, the intermediate module, data structures, and utility module. So in the beginner module, we have the first video is about projects and solutions. This is just for Visual Studio, so I will be teaching this in the environment of Visual Studio. Then we'll talk about data types, variables, operators, arrays, these statements, and all that good stuff. So this is not really C++ oriented. This is just the basics of programming. You learn this, you can do all of this in any programming language you desire, except some parts like references, pointers, dynamic memory, unions.h and .cpp. These are mainly for C and C++. Then we have the intermediate module. In this one, we again talk about object-oriented programming stuff. So this too isn't really that C++ oriented. It's just the basics of OOP, or yeah, the topics of OOP rather. So we will talk about classes, struct. This is mainly for C++. And we'll talk about the differences in C and C++. Objects, inheritance, polymorphism, function pointers, member function pointers, the functional header. Again, these are for C++. Exception files, file structures, and templates. Okay, so templates and exceptions are general things. Files too, but we'll do them in C++. We'll talk a little bit about data structures in the third module. It's not really that big of a deal, but you need to know some of the modules in order to work and in order to build your programs the way you want. So we will talk about the theory of them, the existing ones, the important ones like map and set, multi-map, multi-set, and vector. And then we'll talk about custom ones a little bit. And then we will have the last but not the least module, the utility module. More C++ and some random BS. So these are things that are important enough to be in a video, but not important enough to belong in a certain category. But because they are important enough and they don't really have a category, I just put them all in a single category called utility. So macros are kind of like metaprogramming stuff with C++, and these are again in the environment of C and C++. So we don't really use these in other languages, and if we do, it's probably not like the way it is in C++. We'll talk about the unique pointer, which is an absolute relief compared to pointers. These are headaches, these are painful, and unique pointers are just amazing. We'll talk about WinAPI a little bit. We'll introduce that. It's easy, not that hard. Just an introduction. We'll also here talk about MSDN documentation. We'll talk about Hungarian notation, why it's good, why it's bad, what should we use instead. We'll learn about using the debugger, what it is, how it works, what it can do, and all that good stuff. Modular programming is a good concept that we will also touch. And then the last video, problems and solutions, which you will learn to do absolutely what you want with this. For instance, when you've learned till here, you will be asking me or yourself or anybody else, okay, I've learned this one and these, and usually people call this advanced C++. So you go ahead, go out, tell your friends, yeah, I know advanced C++, but I can't yet write a program. What should I do? I don't know. I don't have any idea. I don't have any concept of a program, of a way to approach a problem in this environment that is C++. So in this video right here, we will talk about exactly that problem, and we will touch upon the solution of what we can do to, for instance, think of and write a program that can simply edit a picture for us. We can easily think about that and write it after you see this video, or any other problem. How do you write a game engine? How do you write anything actually? How to make a new audio format? How to make something like PDF? So how to write something like a PDF and a compiler or a viewer for it so you can view that file in another environment. This can all be done entirely in C++, and the reason to that is because it's extremely scalable, as I said earlier. And we will touch that subject in this video, where you will be able to write absolutely anything you want in C++, be it from a simple Hello World application to an entirely fantastic AAA game. You can write anything from scratch in C++ without using any library or engine. Okay, so that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, that'll help a lot, and maybe leave a comment if you have any questions. You can always email me. I'll be leaving that email in the description. And if you really enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more. Thank you very much. Until next one.